Alright, Bible chapter 30 talks about men and vows. Moses put at the heads of the tribes of the people of Israel, saying, "This is what the Lord has commanded. If a man, excuse me, if a man vows a vow to the Lord, or promises a vow to the Lord, or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth." Meaning, if you make a promise to God, you keep it. Don't break it, because his vengeance will come upon you. Women and vows. If a woman vows a vow to the Lord, or makes a promise to God, and binds herself by a pledge while within her father's house in her youth, and her father hears of her vow and of her pledge by which she has bound herself, and says nothing to her, then all her vows shall stand, and every pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. But if her father opposes her on the day that he hears of it, no vow of hers, no pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her, because her father opposed her. If she marries a husband while under her vows, or any thoughtless utterance of her lips by which she has bound herself, and her husband hears of it and says nothing to her on the day that he hears it, then her vow shall stand, and her pledges by which she has bound herself shall stand. But if on the day that her husband comes to hear of it, he opposes her, and then he makes void of her a vow that was on her, and the thoughtless utterance of her lips by which she bound herself, and the Lord will forgive her. But any vow of a widow or a divorced woman, anything by which she has bound herself, shall stand against her. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or bound herself by a pledge with an oath, and her husband heard of it and said nothing to her, and did not oppose her, then all her vows shall stand, and every pledge with which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband makes them null and void on the day that he hears them, then whatever proceeds out of her lips concerning her vows, or concerning her pledge of herself, shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord will forgive her. And any vow and any binding oath to afflict herself, her husband may establish, or her husband may make void. But if her husband says nothing to her from day to day, then he establishes all her vows, or all of her pledges that are upon her. He has established them, because he said nothing to her on the day that he heard of them. But if he makes them null and void after he has heard of them, then he shall bear her iniquity, or her sin. These are the statutes that the Lord commanded Moses about a man and his wife, and about a father and his daughter, while she is in her youth within her father's house. So God's just basically saying, look, if you make a promise to him, you keep it. If not, you will suffer his wrath, pretty much. So basically, I mean, talking about vows here, I mean, getting married, you know, when you marry each other, you're promising, you know, when you marry each other, you're promising to be with each other forever, you know, no matter what. And especially when you get married, you're getting married in front of God, so your vows stand, and God will hold you accountable if, you know, if a wife cheats on her husband, or her husband cheats on his wife. Whatever happens, God will hold them, or God will hold that person accountable for breaking that marriage. So that's what I'm saying. If you're married, if you're married and things are not working right in your marriage, ask God for help, and He will help you. Because God doesn't want to see no marriage broken. You know, because God made marriage between man and woman, and when you get married, your vows stand. Especially to God. And basically, when you get married, you're promising God that you will be with each other forever. And God hates to see a marriage broken. You know, God wants to see a marriage that the wife and the husband are working together to make the marriage work. You know, that's the wonderful marriage is when if something bad is going on, if something bad happens, and then the husband and wife love each other so much that they're willing to work with each other to make the marriage, you know, to make the marriage better. And like I said, if you're struggling with your marriage, pray to God, and He will help you. You just have to ask Him to. He will show you how. He will show you how, or basically what's the best thing to do to make your marriage better. Anyway, that's just chapter 30 about promising your vows to God. Meaning, when you get married and you make a promise to God, you keep it. Don't break that. Because if you promise God something and you break it, then He will hold you accountable, and it's not going to be pretty much. So whatever you promise to God, especially getting married, with your vows, keep them. Especially for the Lord, and also for, of course, for each other also. So anyway, that's chapter 30, and 31 will be next.